Hi, folks. I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Sunday, the 22nd of December 2024, and I'm going to be doing a biblical deciphering regarding the tribulation period and why is it that it's actually split evenly, if you like, with 3.5 years or 42 months even for the first half and the second half, okay, of the tribulation period, okay. Then I'm going to be using here the book of Matthew, especially chapter 1, verse 17. Okay, so we'll go through that verse in a moment. Yeah, but I guess, folks, you're wondering, Sunday the 22nd, why am I doing a biblical deciphering? Well, I guess I'm a little bit tired today, folks. I had a long walk around downtown Sydney yesterday. Today I'm supposed to be doing my Christmas shopping, and feeling a little bit lazy. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do a biblical deciphering, and at least I got something to do and I can serve God in some way. And yeah, I'm just imagining, how mad it is in the shopping mall with so many people buying presents, trying to get a parking spot, which will be really hard. So I'm gonna do my Christmas shopping tomorrow, folks, early in the morning. All right, folks. Long story short, let's get into it now. I'm not gonna be writing any notes on my comments box, okay? But I'm going to be showing you this roadmap, okay, regarding the tribulation period. So I'm going to be giving you a scan here so that then you can go back and study all this into greater detail, okay? All the things that are written here in this roadmap, okay? And I don't have a second page, okay? So this is that's it, folks. This is the only page you're gonna get. So I'm sure that I can fit all this in just within the one page. Normally, when I have a nice page like this, then when I study my biblical decipherings, I have a rough schedule. I just drop down as many notes as I can, ideas and things like that. And then all this messy writing here, okay, ends up being my biblical deciphering, if you like, So yeah, I just put down a lot of ideas, and so all this mess here becomes something nice like this eventually, folks. So all right then. Now to begin with, folks, I wrote a special note here. Okay. Now, God uses numbers, okay, in the Bible to represent patterns, okay, order and symbolic representations. Now, what do I mean by patterns? If you look here, the two halves of the tribulation period are actually 3.5 years each, or 42 months each, okay? So we can see a pattern here, okay? Also, God is a God of order, okay? So we are seeing here the order of, 3.5 years, 3.5 years, 42 months, and 42 months, okay? And a symbolic representation as well. Now, the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period is actually symbolic or representing the age of the law. And then the second one is actually representing the church age or the Jewish people having faith in Jesus, okay? And we'll talk more about that in a moment, okay? This is why Hebrew is alphanumeric, okay? It's alphanumeric because it needs to be like this, because don't forget that God uses numbers in the Bible to represent patterns, okay? Like I just showed you here, order, okay? Order with numbers and things like that, and also symbolic representations. So this is why Hebrew is actually alphanumeric, okay? Now, in order to do this deciphering, I'm asking a question here, and I want you to remember that there are parallels, okay? Now, why two halves in the tribulation period, okay? Why? Why two halves in the tribulation period, okay? The first 3.5 here, where we got the men of sin, and then the second half here, where we got the son of perdition or the lost Satan, if you like. Okay. So, when you ask this question, then you have the symbolic, in other words, the spiritual two halves. So basically, these two halves are actually symbolic and they're actually representing two separate spiritual, two separate spiritual paths, if you like. Okay, symbolically speaking, in other words, as a symbolic representation. Okay, so I put here the parallels. Okay, so basically, what you have here in the first half of the tribulation period is actually, in terms of being a parallel, then it's actually representing the age of the law. And here on the second half, it's actually representing the church age. In other words, that the Jewish people will have faith in Jesus during the second half of the tribulation period, because according to Revelation 12, verse 14, the Jewish people are going to hide in the wilderness and it will be nourished. Okay, so Jesus rather is going to supernaturally protect the Jewish people. Okay, so in the two halves we actually have, symbolically speaking, two spiritual different halves. Okay, two different parallels. In other words, the age of the law versus the church age, if you like. Okay, not exactly church, because we're actually in the church age right now, and this period is going to be the tribulation period, but it's kind of alluding, if you like, as church, in that people will come to faith in Jesus, because don't forget that in the first half, at the end, then the man of sin is going to be killed, and then the devil takes over, and possesses this man of sin here first. Okay, and so now we got the devil here, or the beast, if you like. But nonetheless, the devil is going to overcome the saints. Okay, and once he does that, then there are no more saints. They're all going to be annihilated, so to speak. But the Jewish people will be nourished. They are going to hide in the wilderness. God is going to protect them, and so they are now having faith in Jesus, so to speak. So look at it as kind of like a church age, even though it's not, but just, maybe like in inverted commas, maybe look at it as kind of like a church age, because at the end of this period, then Jesus is coming for the millennial kingdom. Okay, so just for the purposes of this video, view this second half, if you like, as a church age, if you like it. This is the age of the law, symbolically speaking, and this is the church age, symbolically speaking. Okay, so yeah, just view it like this, just for the purpose of to get the meaning of what I'm trying to say here. Okay, because we have two different parallels and two spiritual different halves. Okay, now in here, then, in these two halves, we are dealing with the number 42, which is actually very, very interesting. Okay, so the wrong map here, eventually we are dealing with the number 42. Now, to be honest, I don't speak Hebrew. Okay, but perhaps this is also a biblical deciphering that I'm doing, raising up the idea in which, perhaps there are other, Jewish Bible scholars or native Jewish Bible scholars who is able to decipher this number 42 in more detail. I can't do that because I don't speak Hebrew, and I don't really like looking at Google. I like to do my own biblical decipherings, unless I'm sort of like want to get a quick reminder as to where I can find a prophecy. Oftentimes I do that just to get me right to the prophecy that I'm thinking about. But even if you were to Google this number here, 42, people will tell you all sorts of different things. So this would be for a proper Jewish Bible scholar, to decipher well here. But nonetheless, with this roadmap, then I'm going to be presenting you with the idea. Okay. And this number 42 is actually important because it's actually represented here in the first half. Okay. And also here in the second half. Is to do here, of course, with months, but also with generations. Okay. Because it's interesting that if you read Matthew chapter 1, verse 17, okay, it talks about how there's 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus. I'll show you Matthew 1:17 in a moment. But by the same token, both has to be the same, And so if there are 42 generations here, I put an arrow here, there must also be 42 generations here. And so then if there is in fact 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus, then from Jesus' first advent, okay, to Jesus' second advent, in other words, when he comes back for the millennial kingdom, there has to be the same number of generations. In other words, 42 generations each. Okay, so do you see here how the number 42 is actually playing a big role in terms of the month and also the generations? Okay, it's very interesting, folks. There is, you know, a pattern here. There is order, and there is also a symbolic representation with the two halves of the spiritual tribulation period. Okay, spiritual meaning that the first half, because of Moses and Elijah coming in, and we'll go there in a moment, is representing, the age of the law. And here, the second half, so to speak, not exactly the church age, but the Jewish people will come to faith in Jesus. So it's kind of like an inverted commerce representing the church age, if you like. The Old Testament and the New Testament mirroring each other, with this pattern, with this order, okay? With this order, with these patterns and these symbolic representations, okay? Now, let us look at Matthew 1:17, okay? So I got Matthew chapter 1, and then if you head down to verse 17, it says here, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. Okay, so if you add that 14, okay, keep in mind 14, and from David until the carrying away into Babylon are another 14 generations. So if you add this 14 plus this 14, and then from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. So if you times 14 times 3, in other words, this one here, that one, and that one, you come to the number 42. And notice how we got exactly 42 months on each half of the tribulation period, okay? And we got 42 generations here from Abraham to Jesus in his first advent. And then by the same token, it has to be the same here. What's in here has to be reflected in here, it was 42 generations from Jesus' first advent to his second advent, okay? So we are seeing a pattern here, an order, So what's different then between the two uh, halves, spiritually speaking? Okay, now um, the first half then is represented as being the age of the law, okay, because Moses and Elijah coming down as the two witnesses, okay, and so Moses gave the law, to the Jewish people, and also God gave prophets to the Jewish people, and Elijah here is representing the prophets, so this period or this half is actually representing the age of the law, okay? Now, don't forget then that also in the first advent, okay, Jesus came to his people, he came to the Jews, okay, under the age of the law. And so this is why, hence, Jesus is actually sending both Moses and Elijah in this first half, okay, to actually represent and symbolize this period, okay, of the age of the law, okay. And also, spiritually speaking, okay, not only does the first half symbolize the age of the law, but spiritually speaking, it's also symbolizing how God is dealing with the devil, because it's a twofold situation. Because don't forget that Jesus also had to deal with Satan. He was tested in the wilderness for 40 days. Now, 40 days is actually also another pattern number similar to 42, because don't forget that the Jewish people spent 40 days in the wilderness, and also there was a 400-year period from the Old Testament into the New Testament, so to speak, a 400-year period where there was no prophecies in that 400-year period. Okay, so the number 40, 400 is a pattern, forms a pattern, if you like. Also 7 and the number 70 forms another pattern, okay. And this 42, is also forms a pattern as well, with these 42 generations, if you like, from Abraham to Jesus. Okay, so numbers do play a role. I said to you at the beginning of the video, how God uses numbers in the Bible to represent patterns, order, and symbolic representations. Okay, this is why the Hebrew is alphanumeric. Now, and so in the first half under the law, if you like, we also see, the church people the rejection of Jesus, if you like, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and also Jesus had to deal with Satan. He was tempted in the wilderness for 40 days. Okay, and also the fact that Jesus, by going to the cross, conquered death, hell, and the grave, and he took the keys away from Satan. Okay, so this is what it means, like, spiritually speaking. Okay, spiritually speaking, then this first half of the tribulation period has two main symbolic representations. Okay, it's actually dealing with the law. Okay, because God is sending Moses and Elijah. Spiritually speaking, it's dealing with the law. It's kind of like a twofold situation, dealing with the law by sending Moses and Elijah, but also it's actually dealing with, the men of sin. Okay, if you read Second Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3, the Antichrist is gonna be called the man of sin during the first half, but once he's killed and Satan enters into him, then he's gonna know as a son of perdition. In other words, he's going to be lost. He's going to go straight into the lake of fire and brimstone alongside with the false prophet. Okay, and so quite simply, spiritually speaking, this first half has a twofold spiritual dimension, a twofold spiritual dimension in that God is dealing with the Jewish people under the law, so to speak, or is actually representing the law by sending them the two witnesses, Moses and Elijah, okay, who were under the law. And also God is dealing with the men of sin. But notice that when Jesus had to deal with Satan, okay, in the wilderness, he didn't die. Okay, he didn't die. He ended up. He's gonna eventually be put into the abyss, at the end of the millennial kingdom, But that's why also here, in the first half, he's known as a man of sin, but then he's going to be the lost one. He's gonna be known as a son of perdition. Okay, so we got two symbolic and spiritual representations on both halves. We got the representation of the law, and then in here we got what you could call, the church age in inverted commas. Okay, so now let us move here. Okay, from the age of the law, if you like, in other words, the symbolic first half of the tribulation period, to sort of like the church age in inverted commas, if you like, the symbolic, the spiritual second half, which represents the church age, if you like, the Old Testament and the New Testament mirroring each other, the order, the order, in other words, the pattern, the order, and the symbolic representations. Okay, so in here, what's here, 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus has to be the same here. From Jesus' first advent to Jesus' second advent has to be the same number of generations. So in other words, 42 generations. Okay. Now in here, the man of sin, he's going to die, and the devil is going to possess him. He's going to be known as the son of perdition. Okay, so according to Second Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3. Okay, the second half, unlike the first half, represents the church age, if you like, because the Jewish people are going to have faith in Jesus. Okay, according to Revelation 12:14, then the Jewish people are going to hide, or they're going to flee into the wilderness, and are going to be nourished for 3.5 years. Okay, and then also during this period, all the signs are overcome. So Satan is actually going to kill all the believers, and then he's of course going to introduce the mark of the beast and so on. Okay, so the second half, spiritually speaking, okay, has also it's a twofold dimension, if you like. It's actually It's kind of like dealing here as a church age, if you like, in inverted commas, because the church people will come to faith in Jesus, they're gonna flee and hide in the wilderness. And then, kind of like similar here, then Jesus deals with the Antichrist and the false prophet, and he puts them both into the lake of fire and brimstone, according to Revelation 19:20. And then Satan is bound in the abyss. He's put into hell for 1,000 years, according to Revelation 20, verse 2. Okay, so in this second half, we see, the Jewish people coming to faith in Jesus. The Messiah is coming. He's going to be dealing with the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Satan, like I just told you here. They're all going to be going into hell. Uh, of course, the Antichrist and the false prophet are going to go into they're going to be thrown alive into the lake of fire and brimstone, but Satan's going to be put into the abyss, okay? So we can see here the two parallels, the parallels of the Old Testament and the New Testament being symbolized by the number 42, okay? So, the Old Testament here and the New Testament, so to speak, the law and the church age, we see this number 42, uh, you know, uh, playing a key role here with the 42 months for each side of the, or for each of the two periods, or the different periods of the tribulation period, okay? The number 42 is playing a big role here with the 42 months here and the 42 months here, and also the 42 generations, okay? So, yeah, it's quite interesting. And also, it has a twofold spiritual dimensions for both halves, in that the first half is actually dealing under the law, so to speak, spiritually speaking, with Moses and Elijah, and then Jesus, dealing with the men of sin, okay, just as he dealt, with Satan, on Jesus' first advent, okay, when he was tempted for 40 days in the wilderness, okay, and then here we also see, you know, two spiritual dimensions, like the second half in inverted commas representing the church age, okay, the Jewish people coming to faith in Jesus, they're gonna flee into the wilderness, okay, and then here Jesus finally at the end of the tribulation period puts the Antichrist and the false prophet into the lake of fire and brimstone, and Satan goes into the abyss or hell for 1,000 years. So we can see, the parallels of both halves, okay, the Old Testament and the New, and all this being spiritually uh, symbolized with what's happening here with the Old and the New, but also by the number 42, okay. So this is the roadmap, how the number 42 is playing a key role here, with the length of the two different halves of the tribulation period, with the number 42 here representing the generations, okay. All right, folks, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.